Well, this chassis has about driven me crazy. I was up till about, well, it's Sunday. It's October 30th, and I was up till about 2:30 a.m. troubleshooting this chassis, and I could slap myself. It was so stinking obvious that I didn't catch it. Is beyond why I didn't catch it is beyond me. Woke up this morning a quarter after 7, and whammo! It hit me right upside the head. What the problem was. So what you're hearing is the 7S682 playing now. I couldn't get it to do that last night, not without distortion anyway. Let me turn it up a little bit. You're listening to a classic country and western station in Salt Lake City called KSOP 1370. Boy, some of the best old country music you'll hear. And I like all kinds of music, but I grew up on old country, so my wife's always astonished that I know the words to all the old tunes. The old Conway Twitty, Loretta Lynn, and Hank Williams, and Buck Owens, and people like that. So I like to listen to that when I'm messing with the radio, but I better change the station here before I get nailed. So let me do that. A little Dennis Prager on the radio. Anyhow, let me tell you what I found. I'll turn it down while I do that. So I was getting a lot of distortion, and I was able to align the radio, strangely enough, aligned it, and boy, does it receive, and it's nice and selective. But I was getting an awful lot of distortion, and it was about to make me go crazy because I couldn't understand why the heck, along with the distortion came really high voltages, plate voltages, and all the other voltages were way out of whack, mostly high. B minus was okay, but B plus was really high, driving me crazy. So I did a lot of snooping and all that, and what I found was, just out of desperation, I started plucking tubes. And I pulled out the 6 AD7G tube. That's the inverter and one of the output amplifiers. It's like combined inverter and output amplifier. It's a push-pull radio. Plucked that tube out and everything was fine. No changes. Or, the sound went away completely, which... let me correct myself. That everything was not fine, and there was a change. I plucked that tube out. The sound went away completely, and I thought, it's push-pull. I should still have something. So I put it back in. Sound came back, and I pulled the 6F6 out of there. So here's the circuit diagram. So what we have here is a 6AD7 that is an inverter and power amp, output power amp. The sound went away, totally dead. Put it back in, sound came back. Then I pulled this 6F6 out of there. And when I pulled this 6F6, there was absolutely no change, other than I could see that there was a change in heater current, because all the heaters kind of, you could see the little bit of change in intensity with them as I pulled the tube out and then put it back in. Other than that, there was no sound change. So I thought, that's very curious. So whatever it is, and I knew it was an audio problem anyway, because I could align the radio and it was receptive. So no sweat. Now I'm going to realign it because I want to make sure it's perfect. But I knew it was in an audio stage, so it was after the IF. It was either here, which I doubted. Mostly I expected it to be in the output stage or in the tone control section over here. So I expected that was going to be where my problem was. So you can see by all my highlighting here that I went over and over and over this. Double checked all my tone control wires, made sure, because I rebuilt all of those, made sure all that was right. Cleaned that pot again and again and again. That about drove me crazy. Made sure all these switches were clean. And I went through, here's one of the switch assemblies, went through that, went through the other switch assembly, made sure everything was clean. It all drew me back to this here. And like I said, I pulled this tube out and there was no change, so I thought there's something going on here. Checked all the wiring. Now I had checked all the socket voltages early on, and every single component as I went through this job I checked. So I checked all, capacitors, I didn't check those because I just replaced them. But I checked all the resistors, and I made sure they were good. I checked all the coils, made sure they were all good. And so I knew that this R19, this cathode bias resistor, I knew this resistor was good. It's a 420 ohm wire wound, and according to the Zenith schematic, R19, let me find it here, R19 is Where is it? There it is, R19. 420 ohm wire wound resistor, 1.5 watts. So, okay, so I had checked that and it measured, oh, I don't know, somewhere right around 420 ohms. Or I would have written down something on my notes. But I remember checking it and it was fine. Well, the sound was awfully distorted. And when I plucked out the 6F6, the sound didn't change. So that told me something. That told me that the distortion suggested that either one of the push-pull tubes is bad, or the interconnects between the push-pull tubes is not right, or there's something wrong with the biasing. Well, I checked all these interconnect wires. I swapped tubes several times. All the tubes were fine. Swapped both. They were all fine. So that, of course, nailed it down to the biasing, cathode biasing for the tube, for the stage. Well, the capacitor was new, but I plucked it out and tested it. It was fine. So I put the same one back in. And then when I went and I tested this wire wound resistor, I'll be damned if the thing didn't show open. Now it tested fine when I was going through the radio before when I was replacing components, so I didn't replace it because they're kind of cool looking and wire rounds don't usually change. So I thought it was okay, but it tested open, so it must have gone open when I fired up the radio. So here's what I did. And by the way, here is that wire wound. It's like a mica mold. It's a little hard to see in the light, but you can see yellow, red, brown. So 420 ohms, wire wound resistor. These are really cool. I see these a lot in Zeniths. So it tests open now. So all I did was I took a couple of, it's a 1.5 watt. So I took a couple of, oh, you can kind of see them up there, some flame proof, the grayish blue ones, a couple of 820s, put them in parallel. So now I got 2 watts there, and 820 ohm resistors. So I get 410 ohms there, measures dead on at 411 ohms. So I'm right where I need to be. Soldered it using the coil method. John in Arkansas is coil method. Thank you, John. Thank you, Buzz, for recommending that. And soldered that in, turned the radio on, and I'll be darned if the thing just doesn't sound really good now. Now, any crummy sound that you hear now is because this speaker has been beat up a little bit. So that's the next task I need to do, is go ahead and fix this speaker up. Nothing I can't repair. There's no reconing required here, and the voice coil is centered nicely, and the movement is good. I just need to fix the holes that they fixed with Scotch tape in the past, and there's some tears on there that I'll take care of those. Other than that, this speaker should be fine. By the way, if you're wondering how I could get the speaker so far away from the radio, you should do this if you're going to do it a lot on the bench, because I don't like, if I'm just testing it for a few minutes, I won't always put a cover on here. I know I should. Shame on me. But what I do instead is I built myself a nice extension cable. And it's about 4 feet long, so that I can go ahead and plug it into the radio and have the speaker well out of the way, so I don't need to worry about it. And that way I can get the full sound of it as I'm playing, and I can hear the bass and stuff. So there you go. So I'm pretty much done with the chassis now. I've aligned the thing. I'll check the alignment, but I've aligned it. All the tone control buttons are working fine. The tuning dial's on, everything's working. The tuning dial tracks where, the station frequencies, so I'm good. So basically now I have to do the speaker, and I have a record player down in that box that I need to fix up for the Unit 2, and that's about it. So I will get back to it, and I'll keep you up to date on the progress.